let's talk tech now. And Moneygram has announced plans for a digital wallet that will use stable coins as a conduit for cryptocurrency on and off ramps and for cross-border payments. Now, the non-custodial wallet will be launched in early 2024. Here to tell us more on Let's Talk Tech is Henry Kobler, lead of iSolve Africa. Henry, thanks so much for joining us here on the marketplace. First off, tell us a bit more about how this digital wallet by MoneyGram is expected to work.
Thank you very much. So, generally we've had a lot of conversations when it comes down to cryptocurrencies and how they're sort of looking at transforming our world in terms of the financial sector generally. And so MoneyGram, what they're sort of seeking to do generally is sort of looking at how they could pick money in the fiat currencies, convert it into the stable coins, which are sort of available, and then they can sort of be withdrawn by people that have been doing remittances and other things on the other side into fiat currencies. And so sort of a very simple way where you sort of holding money in stable coins and then being able to move them over cross-border to, in terms of remittances to people in fiat currencies. And so it's as simple as that. Now, that might not necessarily be the very first time that is sort of going in place. If you're looking at companies like PayPal, they've already started looking at converting fiat currencies into stable coins on the platforms, and that could always be done at any point in terms of using their platforms. So generally, this sort of is going to look at a world transformation of people that are sort of having cryptocurrencies being able to move funds from one location to the other.
I see. How does this make life easier for users, and what's in for MoneyGram basically? So
basically, MoneyGram is sort of pushing the confidence in terms of cryptocurrency currently, sort of also just adding up to the institutional trust when it comes down to cryptocurrency. But generally, what they're looking at is that for the very first period of implementation, they're not looking at any charges because they sort of want to see the actions and inactions that's sort of going to be on their platform, and then get into some level of R&D, research and development to understand the crypto era and how it basically now transforms and improves their transaction levels cross-border. Now, generally, we're looking at quite a number of people getting into cryptocurrencies and being able to adopt some of these stable coins and being able to get these stable coins sort of to be able to look practical within our economies. And so we're looking at people that already are holding cryptocurrency wallets, being able to sort of connect to MoneyGram and then move money from one location to the other. Now, generally, that could actually impact a large chunk of transactions because there are quite a number of people that are having a lot of funds being held in this crypto sector. And so in this point, it basically gives them the ability to sort of switch from cryptocurrencies into fiat currencies and then be able to move money. And so generally, someone in Ghana can actually receive some level of remittance and go to the bank and cash it out. But in the sense that someone in the US only sends a Bitcoin or an Ethereum coin from the US, but you sort of channeling out it in fiat currencies here. So people could definitely receive Ghana currencies from the banks, but necessarily the funding that was sent to them were in cryptocurrency. That's sort of what it means.
All right, so Henry, how would this work in countries like Ghana where cryptocurrency usage has not been legalized yet?
Exceptionally so. I think based on the conversations we had definitely mentioned that some of these sort of global phenomenon sort of is going to start catching up. And so for me, generally, we're looking at how do we now start making policies, which is sort of going to be in adaptation to some of these points. Because, if I'm sending you Bitcoin, from the funds to which I'm sending, might not necessarily matter. But if I can receive that value, in terms of a physical Ghana currency, that shouldn't be a problem with the Ghanaian who is here. But in terms of policy and in terms of regulations, that necessarily has to look at how it's sort of playing out, because it's just going to play out like someone sends you $1, it's converted to a cedi, and you just go and pick up your cedi. And so MoneyGram basically is just going to be the fundamental partner with the Stellar Foundation, which is also going to come to be the layer which is going to be there to be able to now trade with most of the banks. The banks are just looking at how they can sort of make up their money and looking at their fees and charges in terms of these transactions. But in terms of the whole process flow, I think that it would come in in terms of a bit of a regulatory constraints. But generally, I think that it will play out easily for Moneygram because it's quite a large a point of transaction they're sort of looking at. And I think that they will sort of look at how they can also add up to the regulatory policies, which can help them be able to advance the crypto market here.
Finally, quick thoughts on last week's protest against rising cost of living and the role played by social media. It's increasingly becoming a platform to push for changes in economic policy. Really, is it effective as it seems?
Very effective. I mean, social media has always been a tool which quite a lot of people sort of have joined up to push up a lot of protests. My only point is that, I mean, some of these social media platforms could also now be used in terms of channeling and pushing some level of regulatory demands, regulatory inputs, and all of that. That generally comes in to help a lot of the businesses that are sort of around, and how we could improve the lives of the businesses and get it to be. It might not necessarily always be about protest. We can also sort of use these same mediums to sort of push in and get most of our policies to be in streamline. Now, again, I'm looking at it as in this way, like there's a bit of people that are sort of sitting on social media, and there's the reality that sort of also affects the ground. So that could definitely always play up for some of the youth that's sort of coming in. But I'm just looking at how do we now leverage social media to impact our businesses? How do we leverage social media to impact the policy and governance stages, which is in our country, and not necessarily always in terms of protest itself. I mean, the protest was amazing. It basically carried out the information it needed to, but I think that we could always go way beyond. If we're getting to make use of that, I mean, I think that it will be a better point. Twitter had already released that a communique saying that the people that were sort of using the hashtags on the protest are not going to get any advertisement funding, which is coming in for them, and that comes to be a bit of a sad part. So that means that the use of social media could actually generate a lot of revenue. This protest could have generated a lot of revenue for the people that had just added their voice on social media, and I feel that they could actually do it in the positives by making sure that we can also use it in terms of businesses who generate values from there as well.
All right, thank you very much, Henry Kobler, for your time of ISOL Africa, helping us today edition of Tech. Now, that's